Hello my dear friends, today I will tell you about the amazing Spanish city of Girona, a small Catalan city located in the northeast of Spain. Girona was founded during the Roman Empire in 75 AD and served as a fortress, which at that time was called Girona. The immortal city attracts tourists with its well-preserved medieval buildings and magnificent architectural monuments. Travelers come to Girona for the narrow streets, expensive boutiques selling sometimes the most unusual things, a huge cathedral towering over the city, colorful houses along the river, as well as street musicians and circus performers. Walking along the streets over the Jewish quarter or the embankment or the Onyar River, admiring the old fortress wall, majestic temples and monasteries. You can go back several centuries and feel the rhythm of life once inhabited by the people of Girona. However, few people go to the city to spend their entire vacation there. The vast majority of tourists prefer to stay in the ski resorts of the Costa Brava and come to Girona for one-day sightseeing tours. The symbol of the ancient Catalan city is considered to be the lioness of Girona. Her sculpture with the image was made in the 11th century and today is displayed in the City Art Museum. According to legend, the prototype for it was a well-known legend in Catalonia about the Girona wolf. The tamed beast deftly climbed the pole and howled to warn the inhabitants in the moment of danger, warning of natural disasters and the impending attack of enemies. However, no one can explain why the oral tradition speaks of a wolf, and the symbol of the city is considered a lioness. Many tourists who come to Girona go to the Church of San Filio on Caldera Street to see a replica of the sculpture of the lioness of Girona, a beast climbing a stone column. The influx of travelers near this place is not accidental. It is believed that the lioness is able to fulfill wishes, and to make it happen, you need to kiss the stone beast below the tail. Citizens even carefully put a staircase under the cult sculpture. In the very center of Girona, there is a surprisingly beautiful park with tall shady trees, where citizens and tourists are happy to wait out the midday heat. The most interesting vacations of Girona are held here, horse shows and rides dedicated to the days of San Juan and San Pedro. The medieval part of the development of Girona is called the Old City. This is an amazing place of beauty and color which consists of a network of small cobblestone streets. Some streets in the Jewish quarter are so narrow that it is difficult for two people to separate. Traveling through the old city, you can see many stone arches with the image of the hexagonal Star of David. This part of Girona reminds of the rich Jewish community that settled here in the 9th century and existed in the city for several centuries. The core of the Jewish settlement was made up of rich merchants and usurers. The community flourished, building new homes, synagogues and schools. The Jews of Girona were among those who invested in the expedition of Christopher Columbus. However, times were changing. By the end of the 14th century, the Catholic Church took a new course and the city began to persecute the Jews. Their synagogues were closed and their homes were subjected to severe pogroms, which took place by direct of the reigning King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella at that time. The Spanish authority ordered the expulsion of all Jews who didn't convert to Catholicism. Most of the Jews, fearing for their own lives and the lives of their loved ones, were forced to abandon their property and flee from Girona. Poor Catholic families who didn't have enough funds to carry out high-quality repairs or alteration in the new housing settled in Jewish-owned houses. Thanks to this, the old buildings of the 15th century have been preserved to this day almost unchanged. When walking through the Jewish quarter, you shouldn't only walk along its central street, Curia Forza, but also turn into the streets of St. Lawrence, Kendero and Curia Escolapia. Here, in the old stone walls of houses, there are small holes for attaching Medusa parchments with verses from the Torah. In such places, Jews traditionally prayed with their hand on the parchment. Today, the Jewish quarter is considered not only a historical part of the city, but also an area with very expensive houses, and only wealthy citizens settle here. The Anyar River divides Girona into two parts, old buildings and modern blocks. Once, there was an old fortress wall along its bank. The French, who were at war with the Spanish, destroyed it, and in the 17th century, local authorities decided to build residential buildings on the remains of the wall. So, on the old masonry directly above the river, a number of unusual buildings grew up. Later, they were rebuilt, but all this time, the houses above Anyar were inhabited by residents of the city. Today, the old buildings are painted in different colors and look very picturesque. This is best seen from small bridges built over the river. Tourists like to come to the bridges of Girona to take picturesque photos of medieval buildings and egrets that live along the Anyar, as well as to feed the large fish that live in the river. One of the 10 bridges of Girona deserves special attention. It was built according to the project of the famous engineer Gustav Eiffel, and it happened in 1876 when the construction of the iconic Paris Tower was 13 years away. The bridge structure is made of metal and is located in the very center of the city, in a place where the river receives 3 small tributaries. The bridge is painted bright red and fits seamlessly into the surrounding landscape. When you arrive in Girona, you should visit the oldest defensive structure of this city, the fortress wall, which was built here during the Roman Empire 75 AD. This wall was built to protect the giant military settlement that provided security on the old Via Augusta road that linked the imperial capital with Seville. Now the fortress wall has been perfectly restored and is one of the most popular tourist attractions in Girona. You can walk along it and admire the city from above. From here you can see the old and new quarters of Girona, architectural monuments, shady gardens and picturesque foothills. On the ancient wall there are several observation towers that were used by Roman soldiers as lookouts. The biggest of them is called the Torre Gironella. It was here in 1391 that several Jewish families escaped the pogroms organized by the Catholic in Girona. Another historical and architectural attraction of the city is the Arab bath. Despite this name, the baths are not associated with Muslim traditions. The Romanesque building was built in the 12th century. However, archaeologists believe that the buildings where ablutions were performed stood on this site before. In the 13th century, French troops invaded Girona and destroyed many buildings, including the unusual Arab baths. Then the historical buildings was restored several times, but this was only done in 1929, and the Catalan architect Rafael Masso supervised the restoration work. The old baths are equipped with wardrobe, a cold room, a temperature room, a hot bath, and a steam room. In addition, there is an octagonal, richly decorated swimming pool inside. The main temple of the city is considered to be the cathedral, which occupies the cathedral square of Girona. Originally, there was a Roman tomb on this site, but in 1312 the city authorities began to build a Catholic church here. The great construction lasted for almost 300 years and was completed in 1604, when the new church was consecrated in honor of Saint Mary. The fact that the cathedral was built for so long was reflected, first of all, in its architectural appearance. In the huge building you can see elements of Romanesque architecture, Renaissance and Gothic, and the facade of the cathedral is made in the Baroque style and is decorated with an expressive round window and sculptures. Inside the buildings are the tombs where the counts of Barcelona are buried. The nave of the church, built in 1416 by the architect Guillermo Bofill, makes the greatest impression on everyone. Its dimensions are huge, 34 meters high and 23 meters wide. Only the Roman Cathedral of St. Peter has a slightly larger nave. A staircase of 90 steps leads to the entrance to the main Catholic church in Girona. In the city there is a belief that the ascent to each of them provides the forgiveness of one of these sins. The interior of the temple looks no less magnificent. Huge arches intertwine under the high nave. The main decoration of the cathedral are old, very well restored stained glass windows and an organ. A small museum has been opened at the temple, where church utensils, sculptures, rare manuscript, valuable items made of precious metals, and a well-preserved handmade carpet, which experts date from the 11th to 12th centuries, are displayed. Despite the fact that this religious building was built outside the city. It soon began to play a very important role in the lives of citizens. For example, in the 6th and 7th centuries, the church became an important center of pilgrimage at the time of the first imposition of Islam in Girona. The church was a cathedral. However, it was later turned into a mosque. Fortunately, after the occupation of Catalan lands by the Franks, the church again began to perform the functions of a cathedral. Moreover, it is well fortified in case of possible enemy attacks. The modern building of the Church of St. Felix is the result of a mixture of different architectural styles. The original design of the church was developed in the Romanesque era. This is evidenced by the foundation and design of the facade. The foundation of the church is basilic with 3 naves divided by 4 arches. The main nave ends with a semicircular apse. The size is amazing. In contrast to the moderate number of Romanesque apses, later large Gothic windows were used to decorate the interior. However, most of all historians were interested in the absence of an ASP in the north nave. Scientists have suggested that it was destroyed in the 18th century during the construction of the chapel of St. Narcissus. The church dedicated to St. Nicholas is located next to the monastery of St. Peter Galligans in the northern part of the old town. It was built in the 12th century on the model of Italian churches in Lombardy, with an octagonal dome. Near the church there is a not well-preserved necropolis. After all, the original purpose of the Church of St. Nicholas was to serve as a chapel in the monastery cemetery. Today, the chapel of St. Nicholas has preserved ancient tombstones, icons, art paintings, sculptures of mermaids and lions of the Romanesque period. My dear subscribers, let me finish my story about the magnificent Spanish city of Girona. I recommend that you visit this city and you will not be disappointed. Max Fadeev was with you. See you soon.